Welcome back, everybody. This is Rusty here at FCP Euro, and today we're going to show you how to do an oil change on your B58 equipped X3 M40i. Before we jump into the oil change on the X3 M40i, let's run through some important information that'll help you get the job done right. Oil capacity on the G01 X3 M40i depends on the specific year and trim. The 2018 to 2019 models with the first gen B58A take 6.5 liters. Most of the 2020 plus models take 7.2 liters, with the exception of the 2020 plus rear-wheel drive S-Drive cars. These cars still take the 6.5 liters because of the use of a different oil pan. And to be absolutely sure, check your VIN. If it shows B58D, that is the second generation, and only the X-Drive version takes 7.2 liters. If it shows B58 or B58M, stick with the 6.5 liters. For oil, we recommend the Liqui-Moly kits that we've selected and put together here at FCPeuro.com. You can also check BMW's official approvals and alternatives on our BMW oil grade blog, and of course, the link will be in the description below. To make the job cleaner and easier, see the link below for the BMW oil catch tool that helps with the B58's tricky filter replacement. If you happen to end up with a broken oil filter, which happens to be a thing on these cars, we've also got a separate guide for that too. Now, let's go ahead and get into the DIY. So, the tools for this DIY, as you can see in front of me, are very minimal. 32mm oil filter socket, a 17mm socket, along with an extension to get the oil filter out. We're definitely going to want a couple of paper towels or rags. And finally, we'll need a 3/8 torque wrench for making sure we don't over tighten the drain plug and or the oil filter housing. And with that, let's go ahead and get into it. Obviously, the first step with any oil change is opening the hood. On this particular vehicle, it is not so traditional, so we did do a little small sequence for you and showing you that opening the hood does require a double pull of the hood handle, and there is no release on the actual front of the hood. Let's go ahead and get the engine cover off and give us some access to the oil filter housing. So just make sure you have all 4 of those grommets before you go reinstalling that, making sure it's not loose or anything later. All right, once we get the engine cover off, we do have access to the oil filter housing back here. You're gonna want about a 4-inch extension to make sure you have plenty of clearance to get into this housing here. And as you can see there, that's gonna give us just enough. A little bit longer of an extension would be a problem. But before we crack that, you can see that it's kind of at an angle. And actually, BMW does have a tool that specifically straps around the oil filter housing and collects the oil when it comes out of the cap. I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of roll up some paper towels and keep them kind of in the area around there. There's a coolant hose directly below that. You could even remove the cover here to give you a little bit more access. It's just sitting on a couple of prongs. We can pull this up and out of the way. But that is your DME right there. So you are gonna wanna make sure we cover that up in case we get any oil on that on the way out. And one more for good measure. You may also find it helpful to get this harness out of the way. You're just gonna pull these small tabs forward or towards yourself, towards the driver's side of the vehicle, and just get that up and out of the way. You can kind of just tuck it into the back here. It may wanna kind of form back towards you, but that'll at least give you a little slack on that line so you're not worried about it. So we're just gonna crack this, keeping an eye around the oil filter housing, getting to a point where the filter is breathable, but not pouring oil out. So I'm gonna just get this to a point where the air can get past it. As we're draining the oil down below, it's draining the filter as well. Now that you've got that cracked and bleeding, you can certainly let that drain for the remainder of the oil service or take it out now. We're gonna try to let this drain for a little bit longer before we pull that out, ensuring that we don't get too much oil around our bay. So get the oil cap off as well in preparation for the oil change down below. And you can see this little shroud around here has a lot of debris. We are gonna wanna wipe that away and make sure none of that gets down in the engine bay. So luckily for us, we don't have to take off any of these belly pans. We don't have to take off anything other than this little access panel, which you only need your index finger and thumb for. Once you get the car up in the air, take this panel counterclockwise and get it off and out of your way. We do notice that there is an oil leak and or coolant leak in this general area. We'll be covering that in a later DIY once we do get all these down off of here and inspect that further. So 17mm, get that drain plug loose and you can probably get it free with your hand and stand out of the way. There it goes. We are going to be reusing that drain plug. However, we are going to be replacing that crush washer. You want to make sure that old crush washer is not stuck to the oil pan or stuck to the new drain plug. Otherwise, you could have an oil leak starting after you do your oil change. Now that we have a small drip coming out of the oil pan, this is a sufficient time to go ahead and put that drain plug back in after we go ahead and replace that washer. You don't want a stream coming out. We want to make sure we get all that oil that we possibly can get out. So the old drain plug does still have the old washer on it. If yours is stuck, you may need a pocket screwdriver. Simply just get that washer out of the way. You can see here, the old washer and the new washer are certainly in a different state of health. So we're going to put that new washer on. We're going to go ahead and torque this 17 millimeter drain plug to 25 Newton meters, making sure we don't over or under tighten them. And that should be good. You can certainly use some brake clean. We're going to try to clean up some of the oil that's in this area so we can monitor that oil leak. But you do want to make sure that we don't have any oil leaking at this point. I'll suggest for you guys at home to leave this little cover off once you start the vehicle to make sure that you don't have a heavy stream of oil coming out of here, making sure you got that tightened up. If you put that on there, it may collect some of the oil before you actually see it on the ground. So give yourself a second once you start the car up to just re-inspect that. So simply just about a quarter turn clockwise with your 2 fingers, and that's back installed. We're gonna go ahead and get the car back down. We're gonna finish up that oil filter before we fill it up with oil. Holy cow, that's a bad oil filter. Try to alleviate from too much oil getting around. That has certainly been in there a long time. Not a quality oil filter. That is not what your oil filter should look like. These do have a tendency to separate along the bottom flange here, which is why we do suggest to put a good amount of oil in there when you're going to install it. It could fracture the oil filter upon installation or just get stuck from being in there over time. So if you have that problem, be sure to check out the link in the description below where our very own Alex Nelson goes into grave detail on how to remove that stuck filter in the oil filter housing. Once you get the oil filter out, you do want to take a quick look at it, make sure there's no cracks on here. With a rag in your hand, you can simply pinch the O-ring, pull up, and grab that out of the way. We've got our new O-ring. I still have oil on my fingers. I'm gonna go ahead and get some of that on that new one. Slide that around the new filter housing. And now let's go ahead and click in our new man oil filter. Make sure you have that nice click engagement into the oil filter. Certainly give the O-ring on the bottom as well as in here a little bit of oil as well. It's going to make installation a lot better and a lot more smooth to install. And while we have this set up, I'm going to just go ahead and grab all of our rags that we had down here. We don't want to pinch any of those when we're going to put that oil cap back in. That would certainly cause an oil leak. As you can see here, that's why we want the rags down there. All that oil leaked out without even trying, but that's obviously why they make a special tool. Certainly something you may want to consider, or at least have a lot of rags handy. Now, just like we did getting it out, we are going to kind of fish this in there. Try to get this in as quickly as possible in case any other oil does drip in, and spin it into place. Should honestly find its home quite easily. You shouldn't have to force it. You should be able to just kind of spin it. And that's also why we lubricate those O-rings on the bottom of that filter, ensuring that it has an easy path into the filter housing. Go ahead and start to snug it up with your ratchet. And again, this is a 32 millimeter socket, as we said in the beginning. We're just using the ratchet to get it a little bit closer to the filter housing before we do a final 25 Newton meter torque. All right, got 25.7, not over tightened. And if you did have to remove this little wire harness here, just make sure that's re-secured. Now let's go ahead and fill it up with oil. All right, now let's get that oil cap on, finish up the engine cover as well as the DME cover, and we'll start the car up. One thing I want to mention before we start the car up and we set the oil level, when you're setting the oil level, you want to make sure you're on completely level ground, not pitched up in the air on your driveway facing downhill. You want to make sure you're on completely level ground. That way the oil level sensor is reading correctly. If you're on a hill, it may think you're too low or too high of oil level, and you could get a false reading. You are going to have to wait some time for the vehicle to warm up. So we'll catch you guys back in a second and we'll go over the engine oil level once the vehicle is up to operating temperature. All right, once you got the car up to operating temperature, you go into the iDrive and get into vehicle status. Then you're going to go over to the engine oil level. Once you get in here, you have to select engine oil measurement. And if the vehicle is not up to operating temperature, the start measurement right there will not allow you to select it. As you can see, it is highlighted here. We'll sit here and we'll let this progress proceed, and we'll see what the engine oil level is and see what we need to add. All right, our engine oil level is perfect. We are not having to adjust any of this. Obviously, if yours was below that max, you'd want to go ahead and add a little bit of oil. and ensure that your engine oil level is perfect. You may have to go through this procedure several times and adding a little bit at a time, but you don't want to get too much. So with that, we appreciate you guys for watching this video. We hope you enjoyed it, and if so, don't forget to hit that like button. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, get down in the comment section below. And as always, don't forget to subscribe because we'll have plenty more DIYs on this vehicle and many others like it. Thanks so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.